This is JMN News. Welcome and stay tuned for today's top stories. Africa has vast gold reserves, yet limited benefits from them. Africa holds some of the world's largest gold reserves. Countries such as South Africa, Ghana, Mali, Sudan, Tanzania, and Burkina Faso mine hundreds of tons of this precious mineral every year. The gold strengthens the reserves of central banks around the world, is sold in luxury jewelry markets, and is used in modern electronic devices. However, when you visit towns and villages located near these major mines, you rarely find prosperous cities, quality schools, or modern healthcare facilities. Instead, you often encounter poverty, environmental degradation, and poor infrastructure. Economists Economists describe this situation as the resource curse, a phenomenon in which countries rich in natural resources experience weaker economic growth, higher levels of corruption, and a poorer human development than countries with fewer natural resources. The legacy of colonialism. To understand Africa's gold resources, one must examine history during the colonial era. Mining in Africa was designed primarily for export. Infrastructure such as railways, roads, and ports was built not to connect local markets or promote regional trade, but to transport minerals directly from inland mines to ports for shipment to European capitals. After gaining independence in the mid-20th century, many African nations inherited these extractive systems without the capital, technology, infrastructure, or legal authority needed to nationalize the industry or process the minerals domestically. As a result, multinational mining companies replaced the colonial system, controlling extraction while maintaining an economic structure in which capital and profits flowed abroad, while the socio-economic and environmental costs remained within African countries. Lack of local value addition. One of the biggest weaknesses of Africa's gold sector is the lack of local value addition. Most African gold-producing countries export gold as raw ore or semi-refined value. The greatest economic benefits, job creation, and wealth generation occur further along the value chain through refining gold into investment-grade bullion, manufacturing luxury jewelry, producing industrial components, minting gold coins. Most of the world's major gold refineries are located in Switzerland, the United Arab Emirates, Dubai, India, and the United Kingdom. These countries refine raw gold imported from Africa, capture the highest profits, and export high-value gold products worldwide. By exporting raw gold, African countries effectively export refining jobs, tax revenues, and industrial opportunities, leaving themselves at the lowest end of the global gold value chain. Smuggling and fraud. A significant portion of Africa's gold never appears in official trade statistics or government tax records. International Monitoring Organization estimate that gold worth billions of dollars is smuggled out of Africa every year. Millions of African artisanal miners work in the informal mining sector. While this provides essential income for rural households, their gold is often purchased by illegal traders, smuggled across borders, and exported to international trading hubs without proper certification. In addition, some companies intentionally underreport the quantity, weight, quality, or purity of exported gold to reduce export duties and corporate tax obligations, depriving governments of much-needed public revenue. Once the gold reaches international refineries, it is typically melted, recertified, and absorbed into the global financial supply chain, leaving the countries of origin with little or no additional economic benefit. Exploitative investment agreements. During the 1990s and early 2000s, under pressure to attract foreign investment, many African governments signed long-term mining investment agreements that heavily favored foreign mining companies. To reduce political and financial risks for investors, host governments often accepted royalty rates, typically between 3% and 5% of the total value of production. Extensive tax exemptions for mining companies. Legal stabilization clauses that prevented governments from increasing taxes or adjusting royalty rates for 20 to 30 years. As a result, when global gold prices rise, multinational mining companies report record profits to international shareholders, while African governments receive only modest royalty payments and limited financial returns from their natural resources. Russia says 7 killed and 40 injured by Ukrainian drone hitting busy beach. The total number of injured reached 40, with 17 people taken to hospital, said the governor of the Krasnodar region, Veniam Kondratev. He accused Ukraine of a deliberate strike on civilians. Ukraine has not commented. Both sides denied targeting civilians deliberately. It is unclear what the drone was targeting. Some Ukrainian Telegram channels have claimed it crashed onto the beach as a result of electronic warfare which jammed the drone's signal. Several eyewitnesses were quoted by Russian media as saying gunfire preceded the explosion, indicating that air defenses may have tried to shoot the drone down. The crash occurred on a beach near the village of Arhipo-Osipovka on the Black Sea. With its warm climate, long beaches and developed tourist infrastructure, it is a popular holiday destination for Russians, in particular, since sanctions have curtailed international travel for many. Over the course of the last year, Ukraine has had increasing success in carrying out long-range strikes deep into Russia, hitting energy infrastructure and commercial warehouses says are used for military purposes. On several occasions, these strikes have caused civilian deaths, with 8 people in different Russian cities killed at the weekend. Early on Tuesday, a warehouse facility was hit by drones near Russia's second biggest city, St. Petersburg. Regional Governor Alexander Rozdenko said he did not provide the name of the facility. Russia, meanwhile, has launched attacks on residential areas and cities from the start of its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, killing and injuring thousands of civilians. On Saturday, at least 9 people were killed and dozens injured in Russian ballistic missile strikes in Kyiv. According to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the city's mayor said a residential building in the Chernivtsi district was partially. Last week, a strike on a building in Ukraine's Kryvyi area killed a family of 10. In recent weeks, Ukrainian strikes have in particular targeted warehouses belonging to Wildberries, a large online retailer dubbed the Russian Amazon. The latest strike hit a warehouse in the Vladimir region, east of Moscow, overnight into Monday. Dozens of Wildberries warehouses dotted around Russia, many located thousands of kilometers from the Ukrainian border, have now been hit. Kyiv says Wildberries depots are used to supply the Russian military, which Moscow denies. Yet the platform sold a variety of military-related goods such as body armor until recently alongside items with both civilian and drone production applications. 9 killed in strikes on Kyiv as Ukraine sinks Russian container ship. At least 5 members of same family killed in Russian missile attack, Zelensky said. EU calls for stronger borders after Ceuta migrant crossings. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has called for united action on border security after the chaotic influx of tens of thousands of migrants from Morocco into the Spanish exclave of Ceuta last week. Spain estimates that 69,500 migrants have now returned to Morocco, exceeding initial estimates of 50,000. The official death toll on the Spanish side of the border stands at 72, with 11 deaths on the Moroccan side. On Tuesday, EU interior ministers will have emergency talks by video conference to discuss the issue. The incidents in Ceuta have strained relations among some of the EU's 27 member states. The Schengen Agreement eliminates border checks and now encompasses more than 450 million people and 29 countries in Europe. Finland and Denmark backed Italy's moves. In response, Sanchez said he had serious concerns about some European governments and pointed out that Ceuta was not part of the Schengen area. Sanchez has accused migrant traffickers of exploiting a decision recently made by the country's Supreme Court, which constrained the government's right to immediately deport people who had arrived by the sea. The country's Interior Minister Fernando Grande Marlaska said on Saturday that the situation had almost returned to normal and the country was working on an inflammable barrier to prevent illegal migration via the water. That brings us to the end of today's news. Thank you for your cooperation and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.